SnapTech IT is the expert go-to resource for all things CMMC, education, certification, preparation, and ongoing managed IT. Manage, secure, grow. Check it out at snaptechit.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 123 CMMC. My name is Dana, and I will be your host. And our guest today is Shawn Brown. Hello, Shawn. How are you?
I am good, Dana. How are you been? It's been a long time since we've chatted.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. So it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, you as well.
We have a very exciting topic we're going to talk about today.
Always. Who is not excited to talk about CMMC and costing? So
Yep, CMMC and overall cybersecurity cost containment. All right, so our first question will be, what are the most critical pieces of the puzzle when thinking about budgeting for CMMC certification?
Yeah, that's a good question. We get that, quite a bit. There's lots of factors that go into it. Some of the things to kind of think about as you kind of start this journey, it's the size of your organization, number of locations you have, how complex is your network and your environment? Do you have, like I said, those multiple locations? Do you where all do you have CUI data in your environment? Is there ways to kind of, is it everywhere, or is it in certain areas or certain business units? So there's a lot of factors like that go in. Just how much, controlled unclassified information do you handle, and how many people handle that? That all is kind of pieces to that puzzle. A couple other things, what internal IT support resources do you have? Are you going to need help with that? Are you going to be able to do it inside? So internal. So those are, some other kind of pieces. Capacity and knowledge of your internal team will play a factor in that as well. Whether or not regardless of the level you're doing, or whether or not you're doing self-assessment or, full-blown, kind of audit. What's the current state of your IT systems? Mm-hmm. Like, how old is your equipment? All of that will, is, again, pieces to this, kind of big puzzle. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I would kind of think about is, what's your starting point? Where are we at from, where are we going to start this at? And how far along the journey, do we have to go? All that will play a big component of it. Identifying, as you do that, you'll kind of identify those kind of current security gaps to figure out, what controls still need to be implemented in the environment. And, again, this is a long-term plan and a journey that you're going to go on. And so understanding kind of what level, 1, 2, or 3 you need to be on also will play a factor in figuring out budgeting for your CMMC certification. So.
All right, well, that ties into our next question. So how does SnapTech IT approach budgeting for an IT roadmap that includes CMMC certification?
Yeah, and again, so all of those factors that we just talked about all kind of play into, us whenever we're doing this kind of IT roadmap and budgeting with people. So we like to factor in all that. A couple of the other things that, I'll just kind of point out too, that we like to understand kind of where the business is going. So are there big initiatives that are going to double the business in 3 years? Or, do we have that kind of 10-year or 5-year or 3-year or whatever your futuristic version of the organization from a vision and strategy standpoint? We like to understand that so that we can help plan the technology and whatever kind of controls and systems need to be in place for that. So again, it kind of ties back into that puzzle piece that we kind of talked about before, but that kind of goes into that kind of road mapping, just kind of understanding where the business is going. Mm-hmm. We also need to understand what's critical in the business. Understanding, critical systems, critical solutions. If you tell me, hey, this is all important, but this one area of the business is vitally important, that all goes into, helping kind of lay out that kind of roadmap and plan for that as well. And then, like I said, just kind of understanding business and just your kind of goals and what level of CMMC you want to achieve or you need to achieve in your organization, all factor into developing that roadmap and that plan with you.
All right. Well, that sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. So now what everybody's talking about is 2.0. So how do the recent CMMC 2.0 program updates affect the cost of securing CMMC certification?
Yeah. So boy, did they make some big changes from 1.0 to 2.0. And honestly, I think a lot of the changes that they made make a lot of sense. Like, I don't know if we ever talked to anybody that was like, yeah, we're going after level 2 or 4. And so it kind of made sense, kind of to combine those down into 3 different levels now. So I think that all made a lot of sense. But as it relates to just kind of cost savings, the biggest thing is, in level 1 and in some cases level 2 can do annual self-assessments now. And so from a cost saving standpoint, they're no longer going to have to hire that CMMC auditor to come in and do the actual audit with them. And I don't know if I ever saw a specific amount, but everybody kind of assumed that was a $5,000 to $10,000 kind of audit. So depending on your level of CMMC, you just saved yourself, we'll call it $5,000 to $10,000 because of the new rules around self-assessments. So I think that's a big thing that is going to definitely save a lot of contractors upfront, kind of cash and capital through this process. The other thing that I think helps save some of the some cost saving things is we've eliminated, I think, around 20 controls that used to be in CMMC 1.0 when they went to 2.0. And now we're just focused on the NIST 800, 171, 110 controls. So that kind of simplified and reduced some of the scope. And so that, in a sense, is going to help reduce some of the cost, not only in auditing, but just in preparing, for either your self-audit and just getting those controls and requirements kind of satisfied. So those all will play a factor in kind of reducing cost from 1.0 to 2.0, which I think those were a lot of good changes that they made.
Yeah, I think they had to make them. So
there's just not enough auditors to go handle the amount of work that they were talking about requiring. It was just not going to be feasible.
Yeah, we have to remember, even if you're just self-assessing, you have to make sure that you are self-attestation, that you are doing what you're saying you're doing.
Yeah,
on that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Just because they removed the requirements of the audit doesn't mean that you don't have to do it and don't have to adhere to these, because you're right. The executive team is going to put their name on the line and say, yes, we are doing this. Yes, I am putting my name on this document that says that we are. So,
Yep. Like the hot potato. All right. So our next one. So are there any specific cost containment measures that can be taken at level 2 and 3 under CMMC now under 2.0?
Yeah. And so we mentioned one just a minute ago, but in certain situations, some contracts at level 2 now are going to be able to self-assess if you're not handling some of that critical national security information. So great cost savings there. You'll just need to figure out if you fall under that, kind of classification or not. And then the other thing that I'll kind of point out is DoD is going to allow contractors to use a POAM now, that plan of action and milestone, and still receive contracts while they're working to achieve compliance. And so that's going to be a not necessarily a cost containment thing, but you're still going to be able to get contracts and continue to bid and work on some DoD projects even though you fully haven't gone either through the self-assessment or a real assessment, by leveraging that kind of plan of action and milestone. Now, what DoD is going to do, though, is they are going to identify a baseline number of requirements that you're going to have to adhere to. So you're not going to be able to pick and choose and to a full degree and just implement whatever you want to implement. There'll be a baseline requirement and things that they will allow you to kind of put on that POAM, and certain things that are just going to be a requirement and you're not going to be able to put into a POAM. So, but that's a big deal. That's a big change. The other thing that I kind of point out to kind of think about too, and I kind of meant to mention this earlier. I kind of did a little bit, but from a cost containment standpoint, you might be able to not focus on your entire network, but kind of work on segmenting your network into maybe sections or divisions that handle that CUI. Will also kind of help play into some of that cost containment at a level 2 and level 3, just kind of reducing the amount of scope and exposure that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerabilities remediated. Businesses today face a number of cybersecurity challenges, from compliance requirements and third-party risk to skilled resource shortages, ransomware, and alert fatigue. At Vulnera, we recognize these challenges and offer solutions to do the heavy lifting. Vulnera empowers organizations with security solutions that perform continuous asset discovery, vulnerability assessments, and remediation validation in a single pane of glass, so your team can focus precious time on what matters: remediation. Vulnera.com. Vulnerabilities remediated.
All right, that was good stuff. Yeah, those changes that they made, there's a lot of cost savings there. And with the POAM, I think is something that I think they thought they had to kind of put in there, but so they did. So it's just good.
Yeah, that's right.
Have to be doing. All right, our next up. So how does a holistic approach to addressing cybersecurity lead to cost savings for businesses seeking CMMC and looking to strengthen their overall cybersecurity posture?
Boy, what a great long question that one was, right?
That is a long
one. So I tell you, whenever I think about this, my mind always goes into a couple of different directions. First, from a holistic approach, I always like to understand, the entire kind of playing field or the entire requirements, and kind of, going back to doing that assessment, understanding kind of where we are, where we've got gaps, so planning, budgeting, kind of understanding kind of where you're at in that journey. I like to see the whole picture and understand kind of what is it that we got to go tackle. And so understanding it from, the whole picture, to me, helps kind of plan and put that into almost, I don't want to say like bite-sized chunks, but definitely prioritize and address the most critical, controls and aspects of it. And so I think from a holistic standpoint, kind of understanding everything that you need to get implemented and where those gaps are, and kind of planning that out, I think makes a lot of sense. Also, from just kind of a cost saving standpoint, just as it relates to, cybersecurity in general, I tell people all the time that, if you think IT security is expensive, you should try cheap IT or non-existent IT security and see how much a true incident is going to cost you. So, if we're talking about cost savings, doing it the right way, may be expensive in the, developing processes and solutions and putting different tools and things like that in place. But the cost of a security incident, I promise you, will be a lot more painful than doing it, the right way, kind of up front.
That's for sure.
And, and kind of related to that, as it relates to, holistic approach and kind of cost savings, if you were to get hit, think about the cost of, contracts that you may lose, reputation, downtime, employee morale. It goes on and on and on. And so understanding it from a holistic approach and kind of understanding your plays and your playbook and where you're at and where you need to be, I think makes it simpler to adhere to and kind of get to where you want to be. So,
and a little bit of proactive thinking goes a long way when something does happen. So that's
absolutely.
All right, so here's our next one. The DoD is looking to provide incentives for contractors and subcontractors to move forward with CMMC certification under 2.0. Has there been any word on what those incentives would look like?
Yeah, I've heard some rumors, and there's some things out there. I would say nothing is concrete. One of the things that I've heard is that that they may award and allow you to take a little bit higher profit if you've gone through this process and are providing and can demonstrate that you've got a secure network. And so that is the only real kind of incentive that I've heard about thus far. There may be others out there that I just haven't heard, but that was one of the ideas that we've heard kind of floated around.
So nothing concrete yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right. What other insight can you leave us for our audience when it comes to cost containment for CMMC as well as cybersecurity as a whole?
Sure. Yeah. And so I would just say, CMMC is 2.0 made a lot of great changes from 1.0. And, the things that they did around self-assessment, I think is going to help save a lot of companies a lot of money. As it kind of relates to the auditing portion of it. But to me now, it's a lot more clear on where the government and kind of DoD is heading with this. And they're absolutely have aligned, 2.0 directly with that NIST 800, 171, 110 requirements. So there's really no need to wait. It was up in the air maybe a little bit about what was going to happen in 1.0. I think it's pretty clear now where they're landing. And so there's really no need to wait. Go ahead and start looking at, the 800, 171, 110 requirements. Go ahead and start doing your assessments and gap analysis and understanding kind of where you're at and taking a look at, the roadmap stuff and a number of those kind of factors that we talked about, earlier in this kind of, talk. But it's coming, I think they've, like I said, I think they've kind of settled in on where those requirements are going to be. There's a lot of good documentation, a lot of good resources out there, thanks to people like you that are doing a great job of educating around this topic. And so, the time is over for waiting. It's time to take it.
And, even if they do make some more changes, all of the basic stuff that's just good cyber hygiene and they're good business practices for protecting data, that's stuff that everybody should be doing anyway. And I think we're going to see, this more and more spilling over to all businesses everywhere. But so that's something to get started with. Hopefully you're already doing that. But even if you're not, there's, that's good. That's not going to change. So get cracking on the basic stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good advice.
All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. And thank you for all your information, Shawn. It was nice to see you again.
Yeah, you as well.
All right.
I will see you again soon.
Definitely. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Yeah.